Got it.
Okay. Tech issues resolved. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is a wonderful Monday night now that things are working. As you can tell, it's Cubbie and myself. Mr. Young is unfortunately under the weather. I'm not exactly sure. He referenced some like explosive things happening, and I just was like tuned him out. I was like, no, we're not going. I'm not having that conversation, John, during my dinner. And he said, but I gotta tell you about it. No, you don't. No, you don't. But in all fairness, thank you very much for taking time on your Monday night to join us. I know there are 1,000 things that could be happening right now, especially as the weather is getting warmer. The nights are staying brighter later, and for a lot of you, it's very tempting to be out doing 8,000 things, but instead you're joining Cubbie and myself. And so thank you very much. And we may even have a surprise guest.
Hope so.
What are you saying?
Yeah.
Are you saying we're not good enough to carry?
No, it's just new voice, new ideas is always fun.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. We won't say who that surprise guest is because I will at least tell you it is a guy. He is working on fixing things because it's been a little bit since he's done any type of camera work. So he doesn't have things quite 100% set up. And so hopefully he'll be able to join us and we'll be all good. But if not, Cubbie and I got this. We got this.
We got this.
So Cubbie, to my understanding, you were saying you had quite the weekend.
Wow, yeah. My bonus daughter graduated from high school this weekend. So of course we had all the high school, graduation parties and graduation, coupled with full weekend full of weddings, Friday, Saturday, every guy in the company out, making sure they were all set up, and drag brunch on Sunday and actual, events. I mean, it was crazy. It was just like finally, I was glad Monday got here so I could take a day off. It was busy.
And everybody who's a part-timer goes, Monday, day off? What are you talking about? No, I feel your pain, but I'm glad it was good for you. I'm glad you had definitely a busyness to it. I just finished my third double weekend in a row. In fact, my only sets for this year, which was crazy because like at the beginning of the year, I'm looking, oh, May's gonna be kind of light. I got like a wedding, I got a school dance, and that was it. And then just everything flooded within the past few months. But I took out the audio guest book. I sent you the picture of it. And I got a phone booth for the audio guest book. And I tell you, this thing was slick. It just really was. Like the comments I got from the venues before the guests even got there, the venue was like, oh, like that's part of the photo booth. And I was like, no, like that's a phone booth.
I wanted to ask you how that went in there. Because I got an audio guest book, but I didn't buy the facade. And I know the audio guest books are very popular or trending right now. And some people do offer facades, i.e. looking like a phone booth or like a British phone booth and such. How did that block some of the sound so people could hear the recordings better? Is this your first time? You said it's the first time using the audio guest book?
No, this is the first time with the phone booth part. I had the audio guest book out before. To be honest with you, I don't think it's a fair comparison. I haven't listened. First off, I haven't listened back to the tracks, but the first event where I had it was just off of the room that I was DJing in, to the point that you could still kind of hear a little bit of the music in the background, but not like crazy. This past weekend, I was completely isolated. We're talking like room, hallway, and then the room I was in, and to that I was around the corner. Like I couldn't even hear what the DJ was doing. So that was definitely not getting picked up. I don't know if other ambient noise may have been, but it couldn't have hurt, right? It's cloth and it's got a curtain, but it's still going to be somewhat isolating compared to just completely wide open. And so it was kind of cool. It was, the guests had some fun with it. They were getting in, and this particular, couple's friends and stuff, they really had a good time with it because they were jumping in and doing like fake phone calls to each other. So they went a different direction than it was originally intended for, but yet still had a blast with it. And like I said, everybody seemed to really be enjoying it. So I'm glad that was something that I picked up and can have some fun with for sure.
I do enjoy the messages. I always tell my couples that I'm going to put the message in 2 different folders. The first folder is all your family, friends, and loved ones. They're very sweet ones. And then your other folder is all Dan's drunk friends. They're like, Dan's a whore, leaving. Yeah. And so I'll let you do with those ones what you want. But here's a very nicey, sweet ones from aunts and uncles, grandmas, and everybody. And then these other ones when they get drunk or celebrating, which is a fancy word for drinking. They, Dan's a whore. You get all the funny ones,
Yeah, absolutely. I should try that. I didn't go to that extent. So the first ones, I basically the phone that I'm using, everything records super, super loud. So I was dropping into the audio and I was just like bringing everything down, just bring it down like, I don't know, 5 dB, I think. And then it was like, okay, it's fitting. It's not over modulated. We're good. So I didn't listen to everything, but I did listen to a couple of those, and I think that might have been cool. I just dropped it all into a single folder. I put it on a thumb drive and then sent it off for that. But
I saw your thumb drives. You gotta tell people about your thumb drives.
I don't know if I want to share all my secrets.
Okay,
I told them about
quiet.
the phone booth. I'll tell you. I'll say this for my local guys. You want to make sure that you're just using mine. That's all. I've got an extra one. We'll work out a deal, right? All right. So this is how I'm doing my thumb drives. Right. So it's message in a bottle. Right. So you can work off. There's your USB drive. And then it goes in a nice little box. And then I mail out the box and yeah. So
do you put a sticker on there at all? Or like a card at the bottom?
There's not. I mean, I maybe could squeeze a card on there, I guess.
A business card?
When I ordered them, I was supposed to get a logo on it on the boxes. The problem was it happens like I ordered it. And then like they got back to me, but when I was trying to check the messages, like something was messed up in the app. And so I couldn't check the messages from the seller. And then they're like, listen, like we're told we got to get the stuff out within, I think it was like 2 days, 3 days or something like that. And so I didn't get that message until the app piece got fixed. And by then they already sent it. So they're just like, we're sorry. Like we can do it for the next time. And I was like, that's fine. It wasn't like the logo was not make or break for me. Trust me, if a couple doesn't remember that they got this from me, my logo on the bottom wasn't going to help that. So, I think the fact that I do that is going to be 10 times better. We'll see. My first couple should have received it maybe today, if not tomorrow, from the first wedding. So where I use that. So I'm kind of curious to get some feedback on that, because I'm pretty sure I'll hear from the bride on that one, because she was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I can't wait to see these. And she was worrying about some of those not worrying, she was looking forward to some of that other folder that you talked about.
Oh, they're hilarious. Yeah, some of them are hilarious. And I just kind of warned them that I'm just gonna put them to you. You can do whatever you want to with them and enjoy them.
Yeah, the one this weekend, there was a couple that I overheard that was like, they were legit leaving a message like, this is so and so, and my phone number is ... And I was just like, oh my gosh, they're like leaving a legit like style message. And when they hung up, the person that came out, it turned out it was the groom's dad, and he knew what it was, but he was totally playing it off like he was like leaving an old school voicemail of like, yeah, call me back. This is my phone number.
That's awesome.
So those things can be fun. That's for sure. It just makes it different, right? It gives something else that can be cool to do for your events, and like I said, just have some fun with it. So.
It's the new chocolate fountain for the next 6 8 months or year. 1 year, 2 year.
It is. And you know what? The funny thing is, at first I was seeing, like when I jumped on board, I'm like, this is definitely a trend that's going to be cool. I want to get on this before it's too late. And then I was seeing everybody and their brother flooding the market with them, like to buy. And I'm like, man, the bottom just dropped out on these. Like, originally they were like $1,000, and then like you could buy them from overseas for like $12.50, like $12.50 maybe. Yeah. But so then I was like, oh, did I just waste my money and stuff like that? But I really think that these, if marketed correct, have some potential lasting power. But you can't just buy the one that's overseas, because that, I think what I was very happy to see is the ones that I was seeing from overseas. Like then I'm seeing like the flood of like Facebook messages of, oh my gosh, this doesn't work. Like, help me out. What can it's recording in the wrong format. The phones aren't reading it. It's like, yeah, because you bought the cheap version.
Yep.
You get what you pay for. So there's some people that are doing some DIY things that are just, oh, they're so cool. Like the old school, like diner phones, like the ones that you pick up off the wall. No, I'm talking like old school diner, like the old school pay phones. You pick the phone up,
Oh,
in, like that style. Like some people are making their own for that. I think those are really cool. And yeah, the one you got is cool too. I like that. I think the older they look, the more, we'll say, lasting power that they're going to have.
yeah.
I've got like the 80s version. So mine's not that old school. But people were loving it. People were digging it. So that's not what we're here to talk about tonight.
We always get sidetracked.
We did. We totally got sidetracked. And I just know I made like sales for like 5 audio guest book, makers. But with that, I was kind of also, hoping that our special guest was going to join us. But at this point, I'm thinking he's just not going to do that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into what tonight's topic is, which is, why are DJs still hating on DJs in 2023? So let's paint this picture for everybody that's kind of like, what is he talking about? Because this might not be happening to you. It might not be happening in your area. It might not be whatever, right? So, when I got into DJing, this was very much the way things kind of went. We didn't talk to the other DJs in our area, right? We kept to our own little lane. I'll be honest with you, when I got started, I obviously knew there was DJs in other areas, but I did not correspond with any of them. We didn't, I didn't go to conventions, and so I really didn't know personally these other people. And so you just kind of kept in your lane. Whether you hated on them, that might be a different story, but you didn't associate. And then there was some that actually went to the whole hating, right? And I can even recall, like, there was an all out, like, almost a fist fight, I remember, at a wedding show one time between 2 DJs. And now granted, this guy had pretty much copied the other guy's like website, to my understanding. And the names were very similar, and the other guy just had enough, and it was like, that's it. Like, you're being a little punk, like, stop it. And so I saw this fight. So you get this hating type of thing. Then we go through a transition, and I would say this transition has probably been in place for the last 13, 14 years, maybe a little bit longer, where everybody was friends again. Right? Like we have these friendships. And I think some of that was, due to certain Facebook groups, right? There was the old chat boards and stuff like that. And I think that developed some of that camaraderie. But you also had some of the associations that were really trying to ramp up. You had Facebook groups like DJ Idea Sharing, which was bringing some other groups, kind of under the fold. And you had what I was viewing as an uptick in at least knowledge of conventions if you didn't go to conventions. So people were like, okay, I can be buddy with them. There's enough business to go around. Everybody's good. We're fine. Now we're kind of starting to swing that pendulum back in another direction. So again, maybe some of you are not seeing this, but it is out there, right? You can easily search some social media posts and find that kind of thing. But what seems to be going on is that there's this frustration over, some older DJs, and not always older DJs, but this is kind of the generality that I've been seeing lately, is the older DJs hating on the newer DJs. And we can go into some of those reasons, and we will a little bit. But also, just kind of this fight that's going among, like, because there's not as many jobs, or you have some more of these DJs that are content with doing part-time, that is so limited part-time that it's almost like they're just there to take a few jobs rather than there for the care and the business and the personality. So let's start back at the beginning. Who do you hate, Cubbie?
I hate them all. I hate everybody equally. No,
That explains a lot right now. No, I'm just kidding.
I'd almost go instead of older. I'd go with established versus part-time.
Okay.
Versus going full-time versus part-time. Because there are some established DJs that are part-time, and that's no harm, no foul. But I think I'd go with established, because you're right, it's not always older DJs. It's sometimes they're just established, or maybe they're full-timers and their livelihood, and it is an off year. We've talked about, this year being an off year with bookings. It's just across the board with everybody, from photographers to venues. We've talked about it, and it's just a weird year. You're coming out of COVID. It was hot, and everybody's working. There was not enough DJs. Now it's a down year. It's kind of like the economy sometimes. Everything is cyclical. I think we're just having a weird year. So people that have their livelihoods might be getting nervous. So the guy working, like you said, extremely part-time, doing 5 weddings a year, is taking one in the hot season for him, or away from him, and you might be jealous. I don't know.
Yeah. I would say, not just the hot season, because I think the hot season for the most of us, I think what we start to recognize is, listen, during this, and at least around me here, we'll say the fall, like September, October, like they could have those gigs, because I'm guaranteeing I'm going to get something else. It's the times that things are maybe a little bit on the lighter side. So, or at least for what I've noticed, is a big trend has been July and June and July weddings have really started to fall off in my area. When I first got started, I mean, it was like June. Everybody wanted June. Nobody wanted the fall, maybe a couple, but it was like June was the month. And if you weren't booked in June, you knew something was wrong. That's fall now. And so June and July have become these pockets, I think, for a lot of DJs that are missing things, that are just not booked like they used to. And then they look over and they see that extremely part-time person taking one of those weekends that they end up sitting at home. And not just because they're sitting at home, but they never even got the phone call, right? They never even got the email, their inquiry for that date. And then they're going, dang, like now I'm not just did I get beat, I didn't even get a shot. And that, I think, sometimes that tends to hurt. But when you got started, let's go back to that point, right? When you got started, did you feel any, like, I don't want to say animosity towards, but did you feel like, okay, I'm the new kid on the block, those established people were like hating on me for coming along and doing this job?
The only I got to tiptoe around this. The only person that was pretty salty that I opened up my own DJ company. No. The only people that were really salty that I opened up my own DJ company was a DJ company that I left. Other DJ companies in my market were very supportive. Venues were very supportive. Photographers were very supportive, and thought it was a good move. Thought it was a good business move. Thought it was a great personal move. And I started out part-time, of course not everybody starts full-time, but I started out part-time. And I said, I think the only person salty was the person that and it's understandable. We've mended since then, have mended bridges and fences. And, it was never a personal thing. It was strictly a business thing. And that's all it was.
So did you feel, when you were working for that company, did you feel any outside pressure at that point? I mean, it's a little different. I think when you're part of a multi-op, I think that's a little different. Although I have some stories to go there when we go a little bit newer. But do you find any of that type of frustration or directed towards all of you that were part of it?
Yeah. They were somewhat sometimes, because we had so many people, our prices were lower because we had so many DJs. So to be able to get everybody out, you couldn't be premium in your market, but you still provided a great product. I mean, all the DJs were great, but we were a little bit lower than people, because we wanted to make sure it was a quantity versus but we saw the quality, but it was more of the quantity thing, type thing. So yeah, there was some animosity, because we were a little bit lower than some of the single ops, maybe 2 ops or whatever. People maybe had 2 for DJs in their staff. That was big.
And that lower price, I think, becomes something that it's hard for the other side to see. right? Like, unless you've had a conversation with them, the speculation becomes, oh, they're just doing it to undercut us all. Like, they're just doing it because, they're not good enough to raise their prices. Well, might not be the case. And I've got a friend of mine who, he's got 7 DJs under him or something like that. And they do a great job. They do a fantastic job. But he and I had a conversation one time, and I'm like, listen, your area is bigger than mine. How are you not charging at least as much as I am, if not more? Right? You should definitely be able to do it. And he's like, listen, he's like, if I do that, I've got 7 guys here that I've got to make sure that I go out. 7 guys that are relying on me to keep their calendars full. And he's like, so if I take off, $100 or $200 from what is, maybe top, and puts me more in the middle, or on the low end of the middle, everybody's working. And when I go higher than that, I've got some guys that are sitting. And for me, it's okay. But for these guys who are depending on me, not so much.
Yep.
And I was like, all right, I get what you're talking about. I still didn't agree with him, but that was just because I'm not in his shoes, right? I can only speculate. So sometimes there's that aspect of it, right? And then there's the other aspect, which, we'll get to as far as the kind of the current one. But, I will say that some of my best friendships have been DJs, and some DJs in my local market. During COVID, oh my God. So, everything's shut down. None of us are playing anywhere. Some of us are trying to play online. And it was at the point where things were starting to open, but yet the places weren't having us play, right? So we had like weekends where it was like, okay, we can be together in a house, but we can't go play anyplace. And there's 3 guys and myself. There was the 4 of us, and we started doing this thing called Friday Night Fire. And I can't remember. I think it was Seth who came up with this term, and God loves Seth. I think he had a few when he named it, but we just got together and we played. And it was these guys that I was associates with, like I knew them, and a couple of them I talk a little bit more, but we were not that close. And during that time, we really got a chance to kind of develop our friendships a little bit more, and, and just kind of really enjoy. And since then, we go to like the Hershey Park, and just, which is a local amusement park, and just enjoy each other's company, and kind of like, we can talk a little shop, but we don't talk shop. And I think that's where I think some of that animosity also comes from, is, they think, well, if I get together with other DJs, I have to talk shop. And that means I have to get out the measuring stick on my business, right? I have to prove that and no, like, you can talk a lot of things and a lot of things DJing and never have to get to that point. But so let's kind of transition. So you went through that phase, and granted, yeah, given the circumstance, I can understand why, that person was, but I'm glad you guys mended since then. How are some of those friendships that you've seen? How have they developed? I mean, I know you and John, you guys talk frequently, but like some of the other ones, like how did those friendships grow? We'll say that.
Yeah, kind of like you, kind of organically. You started hanging out more. You find that you had, same interests, and even though you do the same job, week on the weekends, you don't always have to talk about your job. And you just kind of became friends, and you talked about other things, and when somebody got sick, you're checking up on them. Hey, how you feeling? And more, it became more of a personal level than more of a professional level. And I think those just kind of, when you take your relationship from a professional level to a personal level, it goes to another level. I don't mean you keep saying level all the time, but it's true, whole nother level. You ever see that comedian? I try not to, once it goes to a personal level, it's really cool. It's really organic. And let it happen. And it will.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is just, start just having that chat, like, and maybe it starts over a business, right? It starts, you see them do something, and just be like, hey, I really liked what you did. would you share any insight? In the chat, there was a conversation a few minutes ago about trying to shadow, and some DJs being very protective of that, not wanting others to come alongside. And so I would almost say, recommend if you are dealing with that local, and I kind of understand why maybe the local ones are kind of like, why would you do that? But, or just be real suspicious of it. Reach out to some ones that are farther out, the ones that are like an hour and a half to 2 hours from you. And for some of you, you're like, well, that's right in my backyard. Well, whatever, you get my idea. You travel a little bit farther than you normally would. They're the ones that are gonna love for you to come along, for you to talk with, and everything else. And I got a chance to do that on three different occasions, and then I kind of let it go by the wayside. I really need to bring it back. But all three of them were just like, yeah, come on. Let and then like when it was all said and done, we talked. And what they got out of it was they asked me to critique them, right? They're like, you're not my client. You're not going to BS me that everything was great and fancy and it was perfect. I want to know, what could I have done better? And then likewise, they share some different ideas. And I've gotten a chance to do that. Like I said, one of them was actually local, because I had posted on Facebook, hey, I'm just looking for some DJs to shadow. If you're willing to let me do that, I'd love it. I said, I'll be your free labor for the night. Right. I'll be your roadie. Let me know. And one of the local guys said, come on. And I said, are you sure, Kevin? Like, are you sure you're okay with that? And he was like, yeah. He's like, I got nothing to hide. You and I are different. Our personalities are different. He's like, you're not going to suddenly do this and be me. He's like, I know that. I know you. And I said, okay. And I took him up on it. And it was a really cool experience. It was nice to see somebody do something different without having to be the person that was a guest at the wedding spying on somebody. Like I think a lot of us have done that. We're a guest at somebody's wedding and we like spy on the DJ. This isn't that type of thing.
Yeah. Be an innovator, not an imitator.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody makes hamburgers. Burger King makes hamburgers, and McDonald's makes hamburgers. Burger King flame broils theirs. McDonald's doesn't. They have them on a griddle. So like he said, he nailed it when he said, we have different personalities. We're not the same. So a competition is great. It drives business, and it's okay. I mean, they both sell Coke. I mean, Burger King sells Coke, McDonald's sells Coke. But like I said, they both have different products, and just like I said, just know that.
And now I think we've gotten to a point where things are starting to shift gears again. And I kind of alluded to that in the beginning, where people are getting frustrated, and somebody hit on it in the post. And I think it's become like they said, there's just an arrogance, right? Like you're trying to help somebody come alongside and they just don't want to take your advice, or they don't want to even come just like have that conversation with you. And so I think the problem is somebody walking up to you and saying, hey, I've got a suggestion for you to do something, is taken a lot worse than if that person were to come up to you and say, hey, you got any advice for me, right? Like they're not in a place that's really receptive for it. And so to have that conversation becomes a difficulty. The other thing is, and I think this is where some of this comes into play, is that social media. Right? We've got to be the best. What nobody realizes, or it seems like a lot of people don't realize this, is that our social media side is our highlight reel. Right? You're not sharing out those moments when you don't feel like it went the way that it should have. Right? I had a prom, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and I ended up talking with a photographer friend of mine. We were chatting back and forth, and I was like, man, I'm just not feeling it tonight. I'm just not really getting into it. I just don't know how this went. And was really kind of questioning like the whole night. And I'm like, did I just screw this prom up for these kids? And she's like, I'm sure it was not as bad as what you're thinking. I'm sure it was fine. Even to the point that I had one kid who came up and was like, great song selections tonight. And I was like, yeah. Yeah. Like that, like not with that much enthusiasm. Like, yeah. Like, no, thanks anyway. And it was just like, I was like beating myself up. So sometimes I think the arrogance comes into play because we only see these other groups doing what we think is 8 hours of a slam dance floor with people jumping and sweating and everything else, only to come to find out if you took each of the reels and put them back to back, it would maybe take 10 minutes of the whole show. Like, be aware, and Grant, I know you got to build up to make the show, right? Because I could see somebody arguing me, well, you don't just get that for 10 seconds. I get that. Okay. But because we're programmed to think that we have to be the best of the best, we're not willing to listen to other people. We're not willing to hear them out. And I realize also this probably doesn't pertain to a lot of our listeners because they wouldn't be listening to us if that was the case. But I feel there's a direction that we need to go. We need to kind of shift that. What are some, before we get into that shift, what are some things that you feel also kind of get in the way right now with that, or that has kind of caused that divide again, if you will?
Probably some jealousy. Maybe he can beat mix and I can't, or he can scratch, or he does those word mixes where, you low and get low and, and you can't because, or you're not there yet. I'd love to do what Nick Spinelli does. Oh my God, that cat is crazy, and I just sit there envious am I jealous? God damn right I am. I am jealous. But he's out of my market. I don't have to worry about it, but I learn from him. I learn from him. And the thing is don't be jealous, learn from it, practice, enjoy practice, jealousy, I think is a big thing for a lot of people. When they do get those bookings, and they didn't get the call, I think they're just jealous, and fear, jealousy and fear, like fear, am I going to lose it? Like you said, we all have those nights. Oh God, am I going to get a bad, fear, jealousy and fear are two big things.
And some of the things I just, as you were talking about that, it also made me think about the differences in DJs. Okay. So for example, when we got started, the big difference between DJs was their music collection, right? Like, for a lot of us, like if you're talking, before when the animosity was there before, it was the music collections, right? Did you have the best music collection or did somebody else have the best music collection? And of course, everybody's ad said, you want the best, call me, right? Like that was
27,000 songs.
Exactly. Like, everybody had like this big library or whatever. And that was the competing factor. And I think there was some animosity and jealousy kind of over that, right? Because they had songs you didn't and vice versa. And then like computers come along and you get the ability to have subscription services where you can download everything and you can buy everything on the fly. Of course, some people were just buying straight out, like hard drives and stuff. And so that jealousy kind of had to go away because you couldn't argue over song collection because everybody had access to like everything that was out there. Whether it was legal or not, didn't matter. You had access to it. And so people became, kind of were able to bond, right? Because they didn't have something else to argue with other than Mac versus PC, or Serato versus Virtual DJ, which is, I think, going to be there until we all die. But like there wasn't as much to argue over. And so that kind of went away. And now the big argument that you see a lot is, do you mix or do you have, let me phrase that, not do you mix or not. Do you have to mix or not? Right. And so that becomes like this fight. That's going to be my deathbed statement, right? Like I will go to war and die on that hill over my opinion on that. And you know what? Maybe it works for you, but it could work better. Whatever might be the direction there, right? Or maybe the clients you're, catering to are the ones that are okay with it. Be aware that you are different people. There's a lot of business that's out there, and you can still all be happy along that same lines. But the other thing that I will say, this is going to be word of advice. This is where I get on my soapbox for a moment. All right. The best, you hit on it earlier when you said, how did you word it? Not imitate. It was
don't be an imitator, be an innovator.
There we go. That's it. So I think one of the other things that leads to some of that frustration and some of that fighting among the DJs, whether it's verbalized or it's behind their back. It comes from that impersonation. Comes from that, I'm going to steal that idea. Whether they stole it from you or they got it someplace else and you feel like it came from you, doesn't, it's hard to say. I know personally, I got really frustrated earlier this year. So we started off talking about the audio guest book, right? I decided to double down and I got 2 of them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it out. I got them. I posted on social media that I got them. It was like a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, one of my friends posted, one of the friends that I talked about getting together with that show, he posted his. And I was like, I was like, come on. Like, you have every other toy out there. You couldn't let me have this one. I didn't say this to him. This is in me. This is my internal. Well, I think I verbalized it, but I was the only one in the room at the time. So it was like I was talking to me. I was like, come on. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? The more people that hear about this, the more that get this idea, the better it's going to be. And I did have the conversation to him, like kind of sly, like, hey, I didn't know you got one, because when he told me, like we were talking about something, he never brought up that he bought one. So that only added to I thought he stole it from me. Like I thought he saw mine and then posted it. Because when we talked about it, he's like, you never mentioned it. I didn't buy any gear at that show. And then, yeah, you did. Okay. But I finally was just like able to put it behind me and move on. Even though it sounds like I'm still angry over it, I'm not. I'm sharing what I went through at that point. And now we've shared different ideas, and as long as he doesn't show up at the phone booth, I think I'm okay.
Here's the thing, he gets it out of his weddings, you get out of your weddings, more people, like you said, more people see it, more people can want it at the wedding. Right now, you're the only 2 people in your market that have it, and you're not going to be putting an audio guest book at his wedding, and he's not, he's not going to be putting.
Well, that was the thing. I could have been, because I had 2. I bought a second with the idea that it would go out on its own. But you know what
I'm saying? So the more it gets clients or potential clients could see it, I when I went to Wedding MBA and I bought mine, a friend of mine who owns a venue was with me. He bought one for his. I'm like, this is awesome, dude. If I need yours, you call me. I need, I think I said, the more we get it out, it just covers it more. People are like, I really want that at my wedding. Who's got it? Only Dan and this other guy. I want to call. Now, if you're 500 and he's 300, you got a problem, right? Or not really a problem. So you like keep the bar high, and you both can make money.
Yeah. By the way, I'm just going to throw this out here. Rob, I hate you. I don't even know who you are. I see the chat, a message about not having, I'm just totally messing with you, Rob. Rob posted, he's like, you don't have to mix. It really depends on the couple, And yeah, that's the whole, like, do you mix, do you not? So I was just playing off of that because I could. But no, yeah, I mean, it's just, I think there's another thing, like some people are mentioning here, I think they're very passionate about the thoughts of what your clients want. All right. And I'm not saying Rob's wrong, and I'm not saying DJ Solstice and what he posted was wrong or anything like that. But, just like there's a lot of different DJs, there's a lot of different styles. There's also a lot of different styles for clients. And your clients may not want XYZ. They may not ever want somebody who mixes like Nick Spinelli or MJ or Jason Jeni or any of these other ones that are out there that are definitely mixers that I look up to. But that doesn't mean that there aren't clients out there who want that. So don't get mad at somebody for saying that, you need to mix. They may need to for their clients. They may need to play those types of songs for their clients.
Well, I think as a professional, we need to be evolving. I think you should learn how to mix, even if it's at the basic level. Be in everything. Be a great MC. Be a great mixer. There's a lot of companies that have an MC and a mixer because the mixer can't talk. He can't host. So what you need to learn is to be the total package. A little bit of mix, a little bit of MC, and you're the total package, not just one or the other. Evolve.
Mm-hmm.
or you're gonna be dead in the water.
Exactly. Exactly. And we didn't even get into gear envy. Oh my gosh. I just said, like you said, evolve, that immediately think of sneakers. But yeah, there's like the whole gearist aspect. Like I know I'm wearing Pioneer tonight, but then there's the fight over, do you know, Roland or Rain or Denon or Pioneer or Evolves or
RCF, yeah.
RCF or JBL and Mackey's and QSC. Like, yeah,
stand, no stand. Do you have a tabletop, or do you know what is your move? TV versus a stand, and yeah, it's crazy. Just do you and be good at you and evolve.
Maybe that's why there's an argument, because there's too many options out there.
That's true. And that's where people get salty. Like I I'm an AV fan. Some people are RCF fans. I love it. I understand it. I get it. But for me as a multi-op, I want everybody to have the same system. It's got to be across the board the same. I'm not saying I don't like I'm too late in the game to start changing all my EVs to RCFs. It's just, I couldn't afford it. So and just do you, stay in your lane, do you, and help whenever you can. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I just looked at the time. I mean, I know we got started late, but wow, we got to cover the rest of it. You had like more questions. We did. We're gonna have to end it though. So I will say our special guest, and you can make him feel bad, because yes, please.
Actually, I'm just kidding. Don't make him feel bad, because I think he legitimately was trying to be with us. Yeah. And just had some tech issues. It was going to be none other than Mr. Michael Joseph himself. MJ was going to try and join us tonight, because he believes he has the key insight to why other DJs hate on each other. And we we're going to try and get some of the bar/club scene idea from him. Unfortunately, because he hasn't done anything for 3 months, he didn't have the stuff set up. And so it was kind of a last minute thought, since John was sick, but yeah, maybe next time we'll convince him somehow, maybe to come join us. And for those of you that haven't met MJ yet, real class act guy out of Pittsburgh that used to be on the show, and one of my good friends as a result of that. And we'll get him back, hopefully. Cross my fingers. All right. So coming up next, Hanging with Howie. Right. So I have no idea what they're going to talk about, but DJNTV.com/chill. So I'm going to drop that into the chat so everybody can check that link. Of course, it didn't send it as a link. Figures. But you want to go check that out. That is going to be your opportunity to hang out with those guys. They're going to do about a 20-minute segment where they record everything. And then after that, right after they do that 20-minute segment, then they'll say, okay, everybody turn on your cameras. Let's talk, let's hang out. And maybe you have some insight as to why people hate each other. But you can go ahead and do that. And then what do we got? Tomorrow night. Oh, that's right. I forgot. I'm back here tomorrow night with Ben Stowe. So 9 p.m. Eastern. 8 p.m. Central, and I don't care about those other time zones. Ben and I are going to be talking about, it's going to be a gear question and answer night. So I've got a few questions that I'm going to pose to him. I've got a few like curious questions. They're not gear related, but there's some things that we're going to throw in and just have some fun with. So that'll be tomorrow night at 9. And then 10 o'clock is the Tuesday night music show recording. So again, that'll be DJNTV.com/chill for that one, for the recording. And then I've got a tip for you Wednesday morning. We've got the shows being rebroadcast Wednesday night. Yeah, and that's your week. We don't work on Thursdays. Like, no, we're too busy preparing for Friday and Saturday. So Cubbie, as we bring it to a close, anything else that you wanted to add? Anything else you wanted to throw in there?
Yeah, it hates a bad energy, man. Just do you and help whatever you can. And if somebody does copy you, take it as a compliment and evolve and do something different. Be changing. So,
you know, and you hit on something else, and since we got like a couple seconds here, I want to give a nod to Mark Berneisen. He's up in New York, up like Upper New York. He was actually one of the guys that let me shadow him one time, which I thought was really cool. His philosophy is to constantly being creative with what he brings to the table. So he doesn't care if anybody copies him, because by the time you actually implement it, he's moved on. He's already got whatever that next plan or that next thought or next idea of how to make his shows better. So, you know, that's another thought is, you know, if you find that somebody's imitating you, maybe it's time to change some things up, to add some new pieces, to look different, to act different, whatever might be the case. So just some 2 cents. All right. On that note, thank you very much to everybody for joining us. I greatly appreciate it. Send some good vibes to John as he heals. It'll be pretty quick. It's just that stomach bug is nasty. We did not want him doing that on air.
I didn't want to catch it.
Nope. I don't think that's how it works. I think we'd be more worried about computer virus, but just anyway. All right, bye everybody. Thank you very much. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.